All right, Jim Huntzicker. Thank you so much for joining us on the Personal Success Podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. So, who is Jim Huntzicker and what does he care about?
Well, Jim Huntzicker is a serial entrepreneur, mostly in the real estate space until about 5 years ago. I've been in personal development for about 14 years. I've been married for 20 years. I got two teenage kids. But those businesses in real estate, I kept walking away from profitable businesses. They didn't go poorly. I just stopped doing them. And at the time, I told myself that I'm bored. You're going to hear me talk, I talk pretty quickly. I'll slow it down for everybody the best I can, but this thing moves pretty fast. And so I just told myself, if I went to a doctor, they'd say I have ADD, right? And so I'm bored, time to move on. I'm bored. But it was like what I realized, but the seventh business was like finally the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. For me, it's God. But it was like, okay, the first six you walked away from that were profitable, you didn't get the point. So the seventh one, I'm going to take all your money, right? And so it made sure that I got my attention. And then when I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? Like a crazy person. Like I walked away from extremely profitable businesses. I mean, they're all in the real estate space. From being an agent, I was the top 1% of agents nationally. I just stopped. I was flipping houses, doing really well. Yeah, just stopped. I was flipping apartments, did really well, just stopped. I created an online product, an info product for real estate investors to show them how to use the MLS to flip deals. I sold 800 of them. It was $1,000 product. I just stopped. And what I realized, so here's the point. Well, two things. One is when looking back, I realized, well, shit, money's actually pretty easy to make because I kept doing it in different businesses. I just walked away from them. So if you believe money is hard to make, just know you have a limiting belief buried there telling you it has to be from how you grew up, right? One of your parents, somebody who influenced you told you it had to be hard to make money. That's not true. So the good thing about that experience is it told me that. But what I realized when I had to go on this soul searching mission, which ended up being 2 years, I thought maybe a month, maybe two. But what I found in that time was that my core limiting belief, the reason I was walking away from all those businesses is because my core limiting belief is money causes problems. Like how I grew up really poor until we weren't poor. And actually my dad started doing really well. But when we were four, we were homeless. I had to move in with my grandparents. And so prior to that, my parents drank a lot. They were alcoholics. They both quit drinking when I was 4. And then my dad went from driving limos and laying concrete to when I was 10, he owned 2 gas stations and a real estate office. So he made a tremendous financial turnaround. But my parents' fighting never stopped. They fought when we didn't have money. They fought when we did have money. So money was a problem when it wasn't there. Money was a problem when it was there. All my little 7-year-old brain said, money is problems. And it causes families to fight, or parents to fight, and families to break up, because my parents got divorced when I was 12. So I told you I've been married 20 years. I got 2 beautiful kids. So subconsciously, this is how deep this stuff goes. Every time my business got to like 500, 800,000 in revenue, I was like, so my subconscious, my 7-year-old brain who's still calling his shot said, hey, you're about to start fighting with your wife and break up your family. You better run. And so that's what I kept doing. And so that's how I got here, is because, okay, I learned all this to figure out all this stuff in my own head. That's what's in my book. My book is a frameworks that work for me, and they work for you too. They'll work for anybody who needs to fix the limiting beliefs they don't even know they have. Because, Ryan, what I felt like was there was like this invisible force that was physically holding me back from fulfillment, success. And so in a nutshell, and that's the long version, but that's who I am. That's how I got here, is trying to figure out why I kept doing that.
Yeah. I love what you said going back to the beginning about beliefs, is because I think, like I still love Tony Robbins. I mean, but I think that I could not, beliefs are like wallpaper. It's like if you're like, what color is your wall in X room in your house? It's like, I think it's this color. You can't see it. It's so obvious sometimes.
Right.
And it really took, like, I had a coach and he would be like, okay, so what's going on today? And I just start talking and he would just interrupt me and be like, okay, so there's a belief of this. Keep going. There's a belief. And I was like, literally I wanted to argue with half of them, be like, no, there's that resentment you were talking about. No, it's just, that's the way it is. But it helped me understand these beliefs. And I realized my biggest block, I'd get into personal development, be like, that's it. I'm turning it all around. I couldn't see that the beliefs were the problem. Right. So how do you work one-on-one with people. How do you help them identify their limiting beliefs?
Okay. So and I love Tony. We talked about this just before the show. Tony Robbins has done great stuff in my life. I went to his first show. I drank a lot, but I was doing really well in business.
Yeah.
But during the event, I was like, all right, he said, pick something you don't want to do anymore. And I'm like, all right, if I didn't drink, I was overweight. I was 220. I'm 5'7", so I was obese. And so I'm like, if I didn't drink, I make up my bad decisions when I drink. So I picked drinking. I went through this whole exercise. I never drank again. Wild. Like just for me, that was, I
Wow.
didn't even know possible. And then the
Yeah.
next year I lost 60 pounds and I'm 75 pounds down from my peak, but I am currently right now. But at the Tony Robbins stuff, like I could never get to the limiting beliefs. So I love the guy. He's done great stuff. But like for me, it was going on a soul searching mission. And I went all the way back to like the turn of the century. Like, I kept going back and back and back. And all the people I studied are in the beginning of the book because I wrote the dedication to them because there's so many people I studied to get the information. I think, oh, this is fantastic. Like I love bits of everybody. The best stuff I found was from like the early 1900s, like Charles Hannell, who was Napoleon Hill, one of his mentors. He
Wow.
wrote a correspondence course. He was doing direct mail in the early 1900s. It was
My gosh.
so
No,
crazy.
I did not know that.
It's called The Master Key System. It's one of the best
Okay.
books I've ever read.
Okay.
The Master Key System. It's one of the best things I have ever read. It's fantastic. But then, going to like even Earl Nightingale and then like Neville Goddard, like, for the mid-century. And after that, what I realized is the reason everything was so hard for me to understand, the new guys, and I'm not knocking anybody. Everybody's trying to help. So this is not a slight to any, but in making it their own, they also made it very complex and convoluted and kind of hard to understand. Kind of
Yeah.
like, hey, you need me as a consultant because I made this so confusing. Right now, I'm not saying that's what they did, but that's how it was for me because I'm not a detail guy. So I through the study, I found some stuff that works. So how do you find limiting beliefs? It's super easy, right? We have powerful states of being and primal states of being. You can't be in both at the same time. You're in one or the other at all times. Like right now, listening to this, you're either angry, like, this isn't right, and you're in a primal state, or you're like, oh, this is good stuff. Like, and so you're in a
Yeah.
powerful state because you're receptive to it, right? So powerful is, you're clear, confident, strong. You feel good, and primal is, stress, fear, anxiety. Anytime you feel bad, and anytime you feel bad, you have a limiting belief buried there because it's what we found is those stories aren't true. Like if you really dissect when you're angry and when you're sad, when you're frustrated, like you're looking for bad. If you're looking for bad, you'll always find it. But if you're looking for good, you'll always find that too. So this all ties back to gratitude, right? So we find it by whenever you're primal, you got a limiting belief buried there. It's that simple. So you start writing down your thoughts. Like, what are you thinking when you're angry, when you're stressed, with fear, anxiety, whenever that happens, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Because your thoughts control your emotions, right? And then your emotions control your reaction, and your actions control your results. And then guess what happens? Your results tie into your beliefs and it starts over again. And you keep going the same behavioral psychology loop. It happens to all of us, right? It was me. I did it for 20 years. I just kept walking away, and I didn't know why. And I had to take a step back to learn that. But that's like, we'll do a thing I have called a decision director, which people can just write on a piece of paper. Maybe we'll do that right now because this is how you get rid of okay, so we just figured out how to discover limiting beliefs, but now let's get rid of them, right? And so you're like, okay, I know what they are now, but now I'm still angry. I'm still stressed. I got it. So I call this the decision director. You take a sheet of paper, you draw 2 lines on it, make 3 columns. In the column on the left, you write the old limiting belief. Let's just say you have a money problem. A lot of people have money problems from how we grew up. I did. Lots of people do. Most people do. I'm not good with money. Let's just be simple. The middle column then is a new empowering decision, right? And so you don't have to overthink this. And it could just be the opposite, especially for now. And it could change over time, but it could just be, I am good with money.
Yeah.
And then the third column on the right is evidence of that decision. Because if you're looking for evidence you're good with money, you'll find it. But if you're looking for evidence you're not good with money, you'll find that too. And your thoughts control your reality, right? So whatever you're thinking about most, you're going to create in your life. It's just the way it works. And so there's a great lecture. Have you ever heard of Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton?
I've not, no.
Okay, there's a great lecture. It's actually the one I recommend people watch is Tony Robbins, who has platinum partners. They pay 150 grand a year to be in this group. And so Tony recently started releasing all these lectures. These speakers he brings into that group. Bruce Lipton. So if you go to YouTube and put Tony Robbins, Bruce Lipton, it'll come up. It's 2 hours. It is the most, because Bruce Lipton was a cellular biologist, like literally studying the cells of our body. I and he had to stop researching at school. I forget the original school he was at. It was on the East Coast, but then he went to Stanford because Stanford would allow him to do his research because he found out that cells respond, like cells have antennas and they respond to thought. So it's literally, it is like, I've listened to it 4 or 5 times. It's mind blowing. I can't get enough of it because he talks about the nucleus and the sleeve. I mean, it's as scientific as it gets, but he explains it on a spiritual level like you've never heard before.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that.
It's interesting because even my doctor, I had a birth defect and I had to get an artificial heart valve. And my doctor, he's like, I just ask him questions about health stuff, and I'm like, tell me about, smoking. For years I smoked. And he goes, well, it depends on if you're a happy smoker or a stressed out smoker. He's like, if you're a happy smoker, he said, don't worry about quitting. And this is a cardiologist telling me this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I'm like, what? Really? He goes, yeah, it has more to do with how you feel. Your health has more to do. He's like, your cells actually
Your
are
thoughts.
reacting to it.
Your thoughts, right? Like,
Yeah.
you're like, I'm stressed out, smoking, stressed out, or like, hey, it's a good day. I feel like a cigarette. It's a totally different. Your physiology, your cell structure changes.
Yes. Yeah. And so I think, now that's not medical advice, but I do think
Right, right.
I think there was a principle he was illustrating there is that, hey, listen, what you do has more to do with how you think about it, how you feel about it, what your belief is behind it than the actual behavior itself. And I think that's evidence for what you saw in, was it Dr. Lipton in his talk there?
100%. You get out of life what you think about most. It's plain and simple. Whatever you think about most you're going to create. So we live like neuroscience tells us we live in this 88% filtered reality, meaning we only see like 12% of what's going on around us because of our beliefs that we decided, right? And so that's
Yeah.
that's the best part here. The beliefs you decided that are messing with your life, you decided them when you were 4 or 5 or 6 or 7. And it could have been a fight like me. I heard my parents fighting constantly. So I had all this stuff implanted about money because I heard fights from the people who influenced me most about money, like
Yeah.
screaming. They were never meant to be. And so I'm glad they were because here I am. But other than that, they were not meant to be because they just fought constantly. So that's all I heard, fight, fight, fight. So I made a decision to believe money is bad. And we make all of like most of the decisions, you make them into early adulthood and adulthood also. But the ones that are messing with your life, the limiting beliefs that are really causing issues, causing you to go primal, happened before you were 8. And you made a decision to believe that. So guess what? You can make a decision to believe something new now that you know that something different is true. Right? You're not stuck with the belief. It's not something that's imprinted in your soul and you can't change it, but you do have to inform your subconscious of that, right? Like, I'll give you an example. For me, I was trying to create wealth, and I was only focused on money. Side conversation. If you're focused
Yeah.
on money, you're never going to get it.
Yeah.
But that's what I was focused on. And I would see people driving Range Rovers and Rolls Royces, and I would automatically say, rich asshole. Like that was like, so do you think my subconscious is ever going to let me become somebody I don't like? Of course not. Right.
Yeah.
So on top of money causes problems, how I grew up, we grew up pretty poor until we weren't. But for the first about 6 years of my life, we were pretty poor. And so all I had my access to wealthy people was on TV. And if you go back to looking at, TV back from the early 80s, late 70s, the programming, as it's called, like shows like MASH or Gilligan's Island, or you can go on because it's still the same today. The people you liked and related to, especially if you were poor, were people living in scarcity, and they were extremely poor too, right? Like they had their mindset was scarcity. They had scarcity. They like usually drank a lot also. And then the people you didn't like often were the wealthy people. So what happens in your 2-year-old, 3-year-old brain? You're like, oh, wealthy people are jerks. And so then wealthy people, or money also causes problems in my house. So now wealthy people are jerks. Money causes problems. My money mind is a mess. And so here I am, like money's easy to make. So I don't have that limiting belief. That's good. So I'm making money easily, but I'm running from it because I think it's about to cause me to fight with my wife. And my subconscious doesn't like rich people. So I had to inform my subconscious that rich people are okay because all the wealthy people I've met in life are incredibly gracious, generous people, right? Like it's the opposite of that. So I said to inform my subconscious. And now when I see a Range Rover or a Rolls Royce, immediately it's automatic. Look at all the abundance in the world, right? It's auto, but I had to program that. I had to and the decision director I just went through with you, those 3 columns is the beginning of how you do that. Because when we go back to we was talking about limiting beliefs, those are surface level ones that are pretty easy to let go of.
Yeah.
But let's get to the core limiting belief. This is the good stuff, right? This is
Yeah.
where it really gets where most people will struggle to let go of these beliefs like I did. And so this is a super easy way to figure it out. Again, you're going primal, but when you think about your parents from growing up, like, cause your core limiting belief, right? Like, so this is like layers of resistance, right? And resistance is what's stopping you from getting what you want. The only reason you don't have what you want in life right now is because you have resistance to it, meaning you have a story you're telling yourself, a belief that you can't do it for some reason. So the four layers of resistance are limiting beliefs, resentments, your core limiting belief, which I'm about to go over, and then this one that everybody has. I mean, nobody's exclusive of this, is not feeling enough, like imposter syndrome or why me? I'm not good enough. Like we all have that built in. It doesn't matter how successful you are, because here I have a client now, super successful construction company. He's in early 40s. I mean, guy's making probably $8 to $10 million a year, and we just got out of rehab for coke, and his wife's divorcing him. They have two kids. He's imploding his life right now, and so the money is not the problem with him. Had nothing. He made a bunch of money. So money is the point of that story is money does not buy you happiness. If you're happy, it can buy you lots of additional happiness, but money alone is not the answer. You need purpose, you need vision, you need clarity in your life. If you're not going somewhere, you're going to implode it, which is why so many people, you hear about all these basketball players or whatever having $300 million, Mike Tyson bankrupt, right? Like people lose big amounts of money, and guys lose 10 million, 20 million, 30 million all the time. You don't hear about those guys, but that happens all the time. And so the problem is this core limiting belief that's like a marriage of your parents or whoever raised you, whoever your primary influences were. It's generally a marriage of their limiting beliefs, and then it's anchored by resentment. And so you're like, oh, like what? Like resentment? And how do I deal with resentment, right? Because like as a guy, you're like, well, I don't want to process that and cry. But the reason it's causing problems in your life is because you don't process it. Is because you're resisting it, so it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now this is something you've been resisting for 30, 40, 50 years. And so it's just massive. And so that's how this core limiting belief stays anchored. And so, a lot of people are like, well, I love my mom. I love my dad today. I'm great friends with them today. Like, this is not about how you feel about them today. It's about the resentment you hold from when you grew up with them, like things they
Yeah.
did to you when you were younger, and you still harbor resentment for that. And so, like takes a minute for people to process. But I mean, I crack people open all the time, and big strong guys, and they're like and I'm like, hey, if you have to go cry, go in the other room. Like if you don't want somebody, I don't care. I cry. I'm vulnerable. It's not like I had to go through this process too. Like that's how I got here. But it's difficult to deal with, so dealing with resentments, you got to name it, right? Like, what did your parents do? Mine was fighting about money, fighting in front of us, letting us hear all these fights. And so I had to let go of all that unprocessed trauma. And then you got to feel it. Like you got to sit with it and feel it for 5 minutes. Like, just close your eyes. You're going to cry. Feel that pain because you've been resisting that pain for so long, and it's only gotten worse.
Yeah.
And then you do a cost benefit analysis on it. And it's always, is it benefit me to keep it, or should I get rid of it? It's never going to benefit you to keep it. Right. So then this is just programming your subconscious. You say so should I keep this or not? No, of course it's not. So you let it go. The next one is you reframe it. Right? Give it a meaning that serves you, right? Give it a meaning that serves you. Like, why do we give anything a meaning? Like this is right. This is the craziest thing. Like as humans, why do we give anything, any meaning in our lives that doesn't serve us? It's the craziest thing.
That's one of my questions. Like, I don't see the only thing I can draw it to, and this is, so first of all, I had an insight as I was listening to you talk, because I have this experience. I've shared this on this podcast a couple of times, but my dad came to visit me, and right after I turned 40. And, I think after he got up in the morning and I ran like, I think 10 miles. I had breakfast waiting for him and coffee. And he goes, man, it's Saturday. He's like, you went running? I was like, oh yeah, I run every day, 10 to 15 miles. And he's like, and he sits down and he goes, man, what the hell did I do to you? And I'm like, what? And he goes, your brothers think you're crazy. You work 100 hours a week. You do it, and this is sort of when I sort of got into this work. And I was like, and I just looked at him and I was like, what do you mean? I did it because I'm your son. And like thinking he was like, and he goes, what do you mean? He goes, I never got up to run 10 miles ever a day in my life. He goes, I play basketball or whatever. And he's like, I worked 40 hours a week and I never worked on Saturday or Sunday. So I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, and that was the first time I was like, why? Because I thought, hey, I'm doing this to sort of, it came from this place, this belief that like I wasn't worthy. I had to do all this stuff to get there. And it wasn't even reality.
None of it.
And that really was a red flag to me. Like, why am I doing this? Like, what is, because my dad's not who I remember him being.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, and so those are just based on the stories you tell yourself, right? And so the not being enough part, like, we all have that. Like, everybody has that. So, you obviously, you didn't get the running, you didn't and, running's healthy, though. Like, so if you like it, like, and here's another thing that, that when you have a vision, when you have a purpose for your life, like, it could be your work. It doesn't have to be your work. If you're, like, killing it in business, in your career, and that's not aligned with what your purpose is, where you wanna help people, here, do so have a purpose, so when you do stop working, or if you do decide to retire, you still have a purpose in life, and it's not tied to your work. Now, again, your work can be your purpose, but when you have vision, like the client I mentioned, he has no vision, no purpose, so he's imploding his life. But if he had a vision somewhere he was always focused on going, like, okay, build a business, use the money to fund my purpose, right? Because the purpose is in the construction business. The purpose is, for him, building houses is what we come up for women. He's in like close to the border. So, women with single women with children. I'm like, so build, you have land, you have money, build some small houses for people, like start something like doing something that give your life some meaning. And so that changes everything for him. He starts to, like, think differently. Every day he gets up, with a more powerful mindset because he's got vision now, where before he didn't. He's doing coke at the office. This guy's got a 500-person construction company, and he's doing lines at his desk in his office. I mean, are you kidding me? Like, think about that. That's all because he didn't have vision. And so like what I was getting at for you, Ryan, is like, if that is in line with your vision, it doesn't feel like work. The mundane stuff you don't like, or like, the emails, you got to manage employees, you deal with your team or whatever. It's just part of the vision, right? It's part of the
Yeah.
purpose. So it doesn't feel like it's just what you do, and you don't mind doing it because it's part of what you are, where you're headed. But if you don't know where you're headed, all that stuff seems like, why am I
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah. I want to go back to a point you made. And I just think it is crazy. Why do we give meaning to things that they don't serve us at all?
It's crazy. And that will change your life. Like, here, so let me, this is something, you guys, you don't have to write this down because you can just remember it, but it will change your life, is labeling thoughts and facts in your head. Now, we all get these thoughts that are crazy, like, what the, I don't even
Yes.
believe that. Like, because our thoughts aren't our own. Watch that, watch, I can never explain it as good as Bruce. Watch Bruce Lipton explain why our thoughts are not our own. And Tony talks about it too, like Tony Robbins, lots of people do. But we don't have time to get into that on this. But the point is that the labeling your thoughts as thoughts and facts as facts will change your life. Meaning, you get one of your messed up thoughts, and you're like, I don't even believe that. Like, why
Yeah.
would I think that? Like, so that's just a thought. That's a stupid thought. I don't like it. I don't believe that. What I do believe is, and you tell yourself, and it only takes about 20, 25 times of doing this. It could be in the same day, because sometimes we get a lot of messed up thoughts that repeat. And after about 25 times, it becomes automatic, where your subconscious goes, yeah, I don't believe that. What I do believe is this. You're like, oh yeah. So that's one negative thought you don't have to deal with. You got a lot more, so you're not out of the woods. But this practice of, like, a fact comes to you, like, oh, it's a fact. I believe that. Store it in the fact side. Oh, that's a thought. That's a messed up thought. I don't even like that. Why do I think that? What I
I
do
love that.
believe is this. And it
Yeah.
changes the game for you, because now, as these thoughts come in, you get to rewire them as they happen, and it changes your life. So same thing goes with what you asked me about giving things meaning. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If it could be a death, a shitty situation, it doesn't matter what it is. If you look for good, you could find it. And if you look for bad, you'll find that too. Which is why every morning I start with a gratitude journal, right? It's the first thing I do, right? Well, I meditate. I do some future pacing visualizations while I'm still kind of in theta, like while I'm still a little bit tired. Sometimes I do it while I'm laying in bed. Sometimes I get up and I just go right to the couch and I close my eyes back and I just start, I do some future pace visualization about where I'm going, what I want to do, my plans. And then I do gratitude journal. And the first thing I write, like, for me, I write, "Dear Father, thank you for," right? So because I'm thanking God. But you could be the universe. You don't have to get weird about God if that's not your thing. But I write, "Thank you for today." And then I write a negative event that I saw positivity come out of, right? That's how I start. And then I do my wife, my kids, my brother, my family, I do my house, my cars, whatever. But what I start with is today, because you weren't promised it. And then the second thing is a negative event that happened in my life recently that I found positivity in. And if you're looking for it, you could always find it. But, like, but we're assigning bad meanings to things because this is the craziest thing. We get addicted to negative emotions, right?
Yeah.
You ever
What's
hear
that
that?
all about? That's
Yeah.
another thing in your book that I thought was interesting. And I can sort of see it, but I mean, what do you mean? How does that happen?
So it's just like because it's our survival instinct. We were cavemen, right? Running from, which is why this is also why walking is very good. Like walking uphill. If you like running, cool, but don't force yourself to run if you don't, because just like we were talking about the smoking thing, right? Like that, like how you think about that, like why you like this was before we were got on the recording, but like how you think about it could be a positive or negative thing. And so running, if you're forcing yourself to run and you don't like it, it's having negative effects on you. But if you like it, fantastic. But also just walking uphill is probably the most effective way to burn fat. Like 10 on a treadmill, very effective. Outside is best and the sun is better. But if you can't do any of that, treadmill at 10 is perfect.
Emotions, yeah.
And so it's our survival instinct. It's our mind's way of protecting us. Right. And so we always go on the defense. And so the negative emotions, it becomes like we get like adrenaline from it. You get like a boost, and it's because it's familiar and it's comfortable, even though it's something we don't like. And so what we become afraid of is change. And we get so used to these negative emotions. Like that's why so many people live in lack. They can't get out of financial insecurity. One, because they were never taught about money. They never gained financial literacy. But two, they've been in lack their whole life. And so getting out of it is scary. And even though living paycheck to paycheck is something they don't want consciously, their subconscious only knows lack. And so all they're doing is like looking at their bank account. I don't have money. I don't have money. I don't have money. And you want to know what your subconscious does? Okay, I'll make sure that's true, because it gives you what you think about most. And when you think about not having enough money, it's going to give you more of that. There's a, like changing your thoughts, like future pacing, right? Like I was talking about, it's not faking it till you make it, right? You got to become the person inside before you're going to be the thing. Like say you want to be worth $100 million. You're never going to get $100 million acting the way you act right now. You need to change your thoughts and behaviors. And so you need to change those thoughts and behaviors in advance before you're ever going to have the opportunity to make $100 million. So you need to start changing your behaviors now and your thoughts now. It doesn't work the opposite way.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to ask you, people ask me this all the time, and I don't think I've actually ever wondered about somebody else, but do you ever run out of energy, Jim?
No, it's one of those things, man. It's like, people are always like, I got a great story. Like I'm sober. I haven't done drugs and I haven't drank alcohol since 2011, and I'm totally sober, but I have a checkered past. And so when I used to bartend, which is actually where I met my wife, there was a bouncer that started a fight with one of the bouncers bartending. One of the bouncers was asking me for Coke. And he's like, dude, I know you got it. I'm like, dude, this is just me. Like, I'm just like, he's like, there's no way. Nobody acts like that all the time. I'm like, dude, I don't do Coke, man. This is not like, I drink a lot, but I don't do Coke. And
Yeah.
he's like, he went and stormed off and got mad, and everybody had to tell me. He's like, dude, Jimmy doesn't do that stuff, man. He drinks, but he doesn't do that. And so it's funny you say that, because I've always been wired like this. This is just how it is. And so I got to kind of slow it down during my coaching calls. But when I'm talking like this, I'm trying to give as much information as I can. So it's hard to slow it down. But
Yeah,
no,
no.
it doesn't turn off.
It's funny because I've just been asked that before, and I've never wanted to ask somebody that, but I'm like, wow, man, there's been no change in pace here, which is good. I don't mean to point it out, make it.
No, dude, this is me, man. It's all good.
So, you openly talk about how like addiction, self-sabotage, and your mindset around money impacted your life. So how does that, tell me a little bit more about how that impacted your journey to get here?
Well, let's go to addiction, right? Let's start there. Addictions are never the problem. They're always a solution, right? So it doesn't matter how much you drink. It doesn't matter if you drug, sex addiction. It could be scrolling on social media, watching Netflix binges, shopping. So just because you say, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, you're not out of the addiction portion.
Yeah.
Of sedating, right? Because how many people scroll for an hour, 2 hours? They say the average person's on social media for 2 hours a day.
It's wild.
I don't go on for 2 hours a month. I mean, ever. I'm rarely on it. I'm about to hire a social media person in my business because I need to get out so I can grow my reach. But I personally do not go. It's nonsense. I think I follow 20 people on Instagram, and I would rather follow one, my wife. I don't really care what other people are doing.
Yeah.
All it is an area to compare yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so back to addiction. For me, it was alcohol. I did, drugs too, but really primarily alcohol was my problem. And so one day I just stopped, right? And so it's because I knew it wasn't positive in my life. I realized, it wasn't the problem, it was my solution. Now, I didn't know what my problem was. I still went on a journey after that of about 10 years till I figured it out. But but the alcohol or the drug, it's never the problem. It's always the solution. And so once you start reflecting and dealing with your limiting beliefs, like the layers of resistance. So it's your limiting beliefs, your resentments. That's usually why you're drinking so much is your because what happens when you drink or you drug or you scroll, you become extremely present in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And so there's no past, there's no future. When you're drunk, you're right there drunk in the moment. You know you're there and you're not thinking about anything else because you're drunk, right? Same thing with drugs, same thing with scrolling, same thing with Netflix binges. You're focused in the moment. But you know what also does that? Meditation.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say
Meditation is the
a
most
couple of things.
powerful way to become present, man. It changed my life. Because obviously I got so much energy, I'm rapid. For years, I told myself, like, I can't meditate. I can't turn this thing off. And so it did take me some time to learn, but it was one of the most powerful practices I ever picked up. It changed my life. And so now I meditate twice a day, sometimes more, and sometimes for 5 minutes, sometimes for 35 minutes.
Yeah.
I do guided meditations. I do, meditation with breath. I do a clock meditation where I just picture the hands going up to noon, like 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, noon. I just picture that in my head so I don't have other thoughts come in because it is hard to control those thoughts. But so the addiction is never the issue. Once you deal with the underlying issues of those 4 layers of resentment we talked
Yeah.
about, or resistance rather, that once you deal with those, the addiction just fades because it's your solution and you're trying to bury your traumas really is what it is. And most people don't want to deal with traumas or even pretend they have them. So they just keep drugging, drinking. And what's crazy to me is how many people drink all the time. And we have so much information about how bad alcohol is for you and how it
Yeah.
actually causes cancer.
Yeah.
Legit, we know for a fact, it's not a maybe. We know if you drink alcohol every weekend for 40 years, the odds of you having cancer are very, very good.
Yeah.
It's crazy and then people are still like, whooping it up. Like my parents were really bad alcoholics. They quit, but some of their friends didn't. And they stayed in touch with them. And all of them are either, like my parents were in their 70s. All their friends that continue drinking died in their 50s or 60s. Like they drank all the way through, drank every weekend or weekly or daily or whatever it was. They all died early. And the ones that didn't die early, like maybe they're still around, are not in a good way, right? They're in walkers. They're not in a good way. And so to me, it's crazy that even with all that information out there, people are like, oh no, I don't have a problem. I can't quit drinking. It's sad is what it is. But okay, so that's the addiction side of it. Then you asked about what was the other thing you asked about there? Self-sabotage. There we go. And so self-sabotage is absolutely dealing with your limiting beliefs and usually your core limiting beliefs. Like that was me, right? So mine is glaring. Walking away from profitable businesses. Like they were nothing wrong with them. They weren't going poorly. I just stopped. And that was me sabotaging my own progress because I didn't want to fight with my wife and I didn't want to break up my family. Like that's what my belief was. And so money causes problems. And so because that was my core limiting belief, I continued to sabotage myself. And so everybody has different versions of that. I will tell you, most people have it with money. Like on some level, if you have not dealt with money issues, or if you're not where you want to be financially, if you're struggling with money, you have money issues. And so that's something you need to process. And so it's about 80% of people end up with the money beliefs that they grew up with. Most are bad. Not
Right.
all, right? Some people
Yeah.
are good ones. But then there's like a small percentage of people. My father falls into this category. My father did really well financially, but he did not start off that way. I told you we were homeless at a point where we had to move in with my grandparents. And so we went from laying concrete, driving limos to doing very, very well financially. But he can't tell me, he's never been a mentor to me, which is unfortunate, but he can't tell me how he did it. He doesn't know because he just rebelled. So this is a small group of people that they say his dad was he had a pretty rough upbringing. His parents were married till his mom drank herself to death. She had cirrhosis of the liver when she was like 52. And then his brother drank himself to death too. So my father coming out not drinking and being wildly successful is actually crazy where he came from. But he's in a small group that rebelled. But that rebellion group can't tell you how they did it, because my dad doesn't know. He said every decision he made, because we were homeless, because we came from nothing, all he said was, is my family going to be safe at the end of this decision, no matter what happens? If the answer was yes, he did it. And so he had a lot of success in business with that as his philosophy. And that's all he did. But do you want to know what it goes back to, which he doesn't even realize? Because he read my book and he's like, this doesn't apply to me. And I'm like, Dad, just so you know, Dad, it all applies to you. You just did it. You just did it. A subconscious. Your thoughts that you had were positive, and you didn't know what you didn't apply this consciously, but you applied all of it. Just so you know. And then he thought about it. He came back to me a couple of days later. He's like, you're right. I had to, because how else did I do it? right? But he
Yeah.
doesn't know. That's the crazy part. So there's a small percentage of people that rebel against what they learned. Like, I'm not going to be like him. Like his dad was a construction worker, concrete, always in the tavern every single night, never home. And his was, I'm not going to be like him. But my dad was great. He wasn't around a lot because he worked a lot, but he was a good dad, you know? And so like, I don't want to rebel against a dad I love, but I did need to forgive him for letting me hear all those fights that I held resentments for. It's him and my mom fighting. My room was next to theirs once we did get a house. They fought like crazy and I heard every single one of them. So I had to process those those unprocessed trauma from those fights that I had to deal with. And that's rough. Like to go back and relive that stuff, like to give you guys an idea. Like before I was 12, I don't remember much of it because I've shut it all out because it was all fights. It was all fighting until I got divorced. And then my ma, God love her, my mom's still alive, but she kept calling the police on me and my brother, where the cops were like, hey, can you go live with your dad or something? Because we got to bring you to juvie if she calls the cops on you one more time. And I was like, so I had to go. So I lived with my mom for like 6 months when my dad moved out, and then I moved in with my dad. And so I had all this unprocessed trauma from both of them, right? And and I love my parents today. And so it's not easy to deal with resentment when you love your parents, you know? And so it's like, because you're like, well, I don't resent them, I love them. It's not about that, right? You got to think about truly before you were 8, what are the conversations you heard from when you're 6 months old, 1 month old? We know from modern hypnosis, like, you know, like real true hypnosis, not
Yeah.
like, you know, stage hypnosis, but
Yeah.
like real hypnosis, they can make you remember stuff from when you were 6 months old that you don't consciously remember. So we now know from like NLP and modern hypnosis that you remember everything. It's all stored in your subconscious. You might not consciously be able to recall it, but it's all stored in your subconscious, the back part of your brain. And so because of that, we have trauma because when we're 6 months, they don't think we can hear anything or remember anything, but we remember all of it. Like, so think about like when you were 6 months, you know what was going on. All I know is there was tons of drinking. There was tons of fighting. And that happened all the way until I was 12, really. Drinking stopped when I was 4. But my dad told me a story once that, you know, this is how bad of a they were with drinking. That his biggest problem was with drinking when he had kids, was that he didn't know how he was going to be able to drink in the car once we were older, right? Like that was his thought process, right? Like how crazy is
Wow.
that? I know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I grew up very similar. You know, I had, it wasn't until later, till I was a teen, that addiction started showing up, but I was aware of it because my grandfather was in AA, my grandma was in Al-Anon. And then on my dad's side, you know, they sort of were all, uh, a lot of them were sort of in denial about their alcoholism a bit. And I sort of fell into that category. I remember in my 20s being like, I remember I'd get up in the morning and I'd sort of be hungover and be like, wow, I'm not drinking, you know, for probably, you know, 1,000 days in a row. I was like, I'm never drinking again. And then someone would call me and be like, hey, we're going out to dinner tonight. And I'd go have some drinks. And I remember thinking, when was the last time I went a day without drinking? And I remember I just sort of rationalized it. I looked around and was like, well, I mean, everybody drinks. It's fine. And
Well,
that was my idea at the time.
you
And
hang
it's
around
funny.
people that
Yeah.
drink. So
And I realized that, you know, in my 30s, I was like, why am I hate drinking. I don't like it. I don't like how I feel when I do. Why am I doing it? And now, you know, I just went to a conference in like Las Vegas, and I'm around people and I'm like, there is so much alcohol out there, and everybody's got to be having somewhat of a similar experience of this is terrible, but they're sort of doing it anyway. And it's advertised everywhere. I just don't understand it anymore. I
it's
don't know.
it's crazy that it's able to be advertised the way that it is, and it's so bad for you, right? There's not
Yeah.
one redeeming quality. It causes cancer. It's addictive. It causes depression. We know there's nothing positive that comes, and it's so for years, because I quit drinking in 2011, and so for years I'd see we don't have as many weddings anymore, but in the immediate years after I quit, lots of people at weddings, usually with a beer or a drink in their hand, they're like, "Oh, you quit drinking? How'd you do it? You know, did you go to AA? Did you go to rehab?" They're like, "No, I just quit, and so can you." Like, if you want to go to AA or rehab, that stuff works too. So whatever works for you. But if you're having this conversation with me, clearly you want to quit. Like, call me tomorrow, I'll tell you how. They're like, well, let's talk now. Like, not now. Like, call me when you're not drinking, and I'll tell you how to not drink. Because if you want to quit drinking, you're still drinking because of other people. So what this is how I quit by mistake too. Like, I gave even when I quit, I said I'm gonna take a 90-day break because I was having twins. So I was like,
I
oh,
have
I gotta
twins
like.
too.
Yeah, I was like reset, like, okay, like just take a 90-day break. I had never taken a break like this before ever. And in that time, I told a couple of my buddies that they were the ones that were my drinking buddies, but I didn't realize that at the time because I hung out with them all the time because they were my friends. And I'm like, don't call me to go out drinking for 90 days. I'm like, I got to take a break. I need like a health reset. And, most people respected that because they knew I'd be drinking again in 90 days. But there was like 3 guys that I drank with pretty heavily. And they were all more successful than me on paper. They all had bigger houses. One of my buddies drove a Ferrari. Like they all owned their own businesses, a mortgage company, whatever. I was in the real estate space. And so I hung around people that were more successful than me and also drank more than me because I'm like, oh, well, I'm fine then. But what happened for me during this process was I'm like, but dude, I'm going to drink. Like, I need a break. I told you, but they wouldn't. And this is the crazy thing. My buddy that drove the Ferrari. This is, we're going back. I was in my early 30s, and that dude would not leave me alone. And that almost like triggered, like, okay, I'm going to quit forever. Like I knew when he wouldn't leave me alone, I'm done. I'm like, I'm not letting somebody else control how and when I drink. I told him I'm only taking a break. And so that set it off. And after 90 days, he's like, all right, 90 days. I'm like, dude, I'm done forever. Sorry. Like I never felt better. I've never had more clarity. I'm like, I'm out. I'm never drinking again. And sadly, that dude, like 4 years ago, actually the last Tony Robbins event I was at, it was in 2021. That dude drank himself to death. His ex-wife got remarried and he drank himself to death. And he choked on his own puke. That's how you drink yourself to death because you can't even wake up when you puke in your mouth. And that's what happened to that guy. And, but the point is so that's how I tell people, like people listening, if you want to quit drinking, but you don't know how, because you're like, people are always like, oh, I got this event, or I got to do this, or I got this guy, or my friends, or this. There's always a reason you're going to say, to drink, but there's always a reason not to. You use a 90-day health excuse. Hey, I'm taking a 90-day break. I'm resetting my health. I'm going to drink again in 90 days. So that way, most people will leave you alone, especially your friends. If the people keep calling you to drink, they're not your friends. They're your drinking buddies, because your friends would respect you and say, okay, he's taking a 90-day break. Let's not force him to drink because he's doing a health, reset. And then after 90 days, you just tell them exactly what I did. I've never felt clear. I feel great. I'm done drinking forever, because now you have a 90-day runway also, right? I've probably helped 30 people quit that way, where they're like, this is incredible. Thank you so much. Because they had a dialogue to use now to fend off the people that were calling them to drink over and over again. Because that's why if you want to quit and you keep doing it, it's because of other people. Like, just so you know.
Well, I think it's funny because for years I didn't drink, and somehow somebody put it in my mind that I do everything a little bit too hardcore. They're like, you need to like relax. And so it was like a hot summer day. Like it was about a year ago, and they're like, here, they would always, my neighbors would, everybody, like I live in this cul-de-sac, and everybody gets together and we go to the pools, and we're sitting there and here, have a beer. And it's like a Mick Ultra. And I'm like, okay, this is not even really beer. I'll drink this beer. And after not drinking for years and having one drink, I had to go home in the middle of July 4th celebration and like sleep because I felt so terrible. I was like, why would I ever want to do that again? So I don't know. I don't get it. It was a terrible feeling. But it was the social aspect of it that got me to do it again, even after years. And we're talking I don't even think I finished it. One beer.
Yeah. Like it's so like they're like most people, if you drink to excess often, you're sedating, right? Like that's so unhealthy, and you're doing it to because you have unprocessed trauma. It's that simple. Like my wife still drinks to this day, but she might have one glass of wine that she usually never finishes. Like when I was drinking, like I had a goal, and it was not to have one, right? Like I was drinking to get drunk. Like that was my goal when I was drinking. There was never one. I never once said like, I'm going to have one tonight, and then I had 10. I always said I'm going to have 10, and I did. Sometimes I had 20. Like there was always a goal. And so if you're drinking to excess often, you have unprocessed trauma. The drinking is not the problem. You need to deal with the underlying issue, which is unprocessed trauma. And usually it's tied to your core limiting belief, which is anchored by resentment. And so my book can walk you through how to get out of that. Like that's what the book is. It's frameworks. It's only 66 pages. It was only 28 written pages before I had it formatted. So it's not long. And I wrote it as a baseline for my clients to use to get the frameworks so they could wrap their head around what we're about to do. Now, together, we dive a lot deeper into, soul purpose and their life vision, limiting belief discovery, but all of that is in the book of how to do it on your own. So, like the book you can get for free on my website, or because it's just a PDF download, or you can go to Amazon and get Mindset Breakthrough for, I think it's $11, $10.99. So like I priced it as low as I could to get, it's the cost to have it printed and shipped, because it's, you can get it with Prime.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because I love the, I can't remember what it was called, your framework for identifying limiting beliefs.
Yeah, like powerful and primal states of being.
Yeah, well, there's this. So I recently had this experience where, and this messes with you on a bunch of different levels, because I realized that I had this core belief of you're not worth it. right? And it makes sense. I was like the oldest of six, you know what I mean? So I was the oldest. So guess what? I don't really have time to listen to what you're saying because, we've got all these other kids around here.
Yeah, you're right, right.
And I got to go to work and I got to
You're
go
old
do
enough
this.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, you're old enough now to do all this. And so, and like you, I get along great with my parents now, and there was issues and things, and it just became, unless I was doing something extreme, it was like, you're not worth it. And so I identified this, and I worked with a coach on it, and it's funny because it played with my money story too. It was like, you're not worth it. So anytime I had any money, it was like, oh my God, nobody knows I have this. I got to blow it before they take it from me or something.
You find ways to get rid of it.
Yeah. And so I'm like, when I realized that, it's crazy. And I even had now, so, I can't even bring myself to say the number, but this month in August, I had the most financially successful month of my life. I made more this month than I ever have made in my entire life. And all those things are still there. And I'm like, man, but there are new ways, because it was like, I have to hide this, or I have to spend it, or there's shame involved in it or something. Man, does it ever go away?
Yeah, well, so you have to go to like the decision director would be super powerful for you to use, but also there's a couple of money books that are super powerful that I highly recommend you read. Garrett Gunderson, Money Unmasked is the first one you should read. It's not a long read, neither is the second one, but that's kind of the surface level, like the entry, but it's very, very good. And then you read Killing Sacred Cows, and Sacred Cows is all it is those are money myths. That's what he's referring to with Sacred Cows is money myths. And those two books alone changed the way I view money forever. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend both of those books. And based on what you're telling me, you should read them today because they're really, really good books. And they take money and turn it on its head because it'll make you look at it a way you never have before. Like those thoughts you're currently having, you can get rid of with the decision director. Those are surface level, most of them, unless you had some really deep stuff growing up. But you can figure that out through the decision director of how to get rid of those. And then you read, like I don't think I said this yet, but so you did talk about recording them. So you draw the two columns. You got the limiting belief in the left column. You got the new empowering decision in the middle.
Yeah.
And then you got evidence of that and the right? So this is how you get rid of limiting beliefs, right? So you draw two lines on a paper, make three columns. You got in the left, you have the old limiting belief. The middle is a new empowering decision, and the right column is evidence of that. And so let's just use money real quick. Money. So I'm not good with money. So that's your old limiting belief. The new empowering decision, you don't have to overthink it. It could be more than this, but it could just be the opposite. I am good with money. And then the third column is evidence of that. And if you're looking for evidence of you could find it everywhere. Like I save here, I do this, I just had my best month ever. Like there's always evidence of it everywhere. Mm-hmm. But here's the key is you take your phone voice notes and then you record your new empowering decision and the evidence of that. And there could be one new empowering decision with 5 or 6 evidence of it. And you record that in your voice notes. And then you listen to it 3 times a day for like a month.